Hey everyone, my name is Jazz, and for today's video, I'm going to show how Alliege won the NAW Dreamhack last week. I've split the video into his heat, semifinals, and final performances. If you want to skip to a specific part of the video, timestamps should be on your screen right now. I have also split each of these tournaments into his early, mid, and late game separately for a little bit more clarity as well. Let's get right into it. In general, in each of the tournaments, he appeared to have a quite clear idea of what he was doing, either playing passive or aggressive with no hesitation, depending on the situation. His gameplay wasn't too flashy, but he did have some nice piece control moments, as well as being able to go all in when he felt like it was a good time for it. He also seemed to have a good ability of mentally resetting himself when something unfortunate happened. For example, accidentally using a crash pad, getting boogie bombed, or even getting pickaxed. For his loadout, he would always take a pump shotgun and shockwaves when possible. He also prioritized peppers over crash pads. Now for the heat gameplay. He ended up placing 117th with fairly consistent games, but no wins. In his early game, he always landed at Doghouse, no matter who was contesting him here. After this, he would usually rotate towards blacktops while farming metal. Once he had decent loot, he would push anyone still remaining in retail, and he would almost always kill them. But most people would rotate away from him. After wiping retail, he would farm mats and upgrade his pump to either blue or purple, depending on how far away the zone was. After this, he would either walk or drive to zone, depending on how far away the first circle was. For his mid-game, he was fairly aggressive the first two games, which is fairly common among pros as it's a low-point lobby. But Alliege only pushed players once he was in zone to avoid storm fights. After the third circle, he would also only fight in box fights to avoid third parties. After these first two games, he slowed down his gameplay and rotated towards a power position as close to the center of second circle as he could. This would set him up nicely for future zones and save his mobility for endgame. If for some reason he didn't have a lot of shields, he would push players with his utility in the mid-game. In endgame, he would go ahead of first moving zone and almost always get in on someone. This would give him a refresh, and he rarely died doing this, as he was confident and made use of the chaos around them. Looking for a kill on first moving is usually something I wouldn't recommend, but maybe in this season it could be really good, who knows. This gave him a refresh to survive for a long time while looking for free kills without overcommitting. In one of the lower point games, he also took height on first moving with low amount of materials, but it did secure him a second place with a decent amount of kills. Next up, semifinals, in which he placed second while securing 3 wins. His early game wasn't too different in semifinals. He still landed Doghouse and retail and had the same loot path. He would still push players in the lower point lobbies as well, claiming retail for himself, although even more players would rotate away from him. The higher point lobbies, he would play more passive, but would still go for storm surge tags in the early game, as well as third party and early game fight once. He wouldn't upgrade his shotgun except for when he had extra materials from quick kills, and one game where he just kind of felt like it. Except for this game, this made him rotate later, and it actually got him killed. He would still use a car when first zone was far. His mid-game in semifinals was very similar to his heat. He rotated to a power position as close to center of second circle as possible, and he would push someone if he didn't have enough heals. Something different from heats though was him occasionally upgrading his pump in the mid-game while rotating instead of in the early game. His endgame was also quite similar to his endgame in heats. He would push someone really aggressively once he was ahead of first moving zone. After getting this kill, he would have max materials and he would use his mobility. Different from heats though, he would almost always hold on to one piece of utility until final zone to take height with it. This secured him 2 wins. Now, let's see how exactly he got first place in the grand finals, which he mainly achieved by playing very consistent. He never fought off spawn in finals. Instead of landing at doghouse, he landed blacktops, while another player took houses. So they had a fairly even split. But his advantage was the upgrade station on his side. Alliege would upgrade his shotgun every game, either to purple if he had zone, or only once if he didn't have zone. In the mid game, he would still prioritize getting a power position in second circle, but he wouldn't worry as much about getting center, because in finals, there were actually a lot more players alive compared to semis and heats. He would also still use his utility to push someone when he's low on shields or when he had bad loot. His endgame was basically the same as in finals. He would again get in on someone first moving and then use that loot to stay alive as long as possible. This gave him his very consistent placements. Alright, that was a fairly quick rundown of all the things Alliege did to win Dreamhack. I hope you guys found it useful. If you want to support me, you can use my code in the item shop, CoachJazz, and join up on our Discord. I'll post a link to it in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.